So we are live here in, well, wherever we are in the world, of course. I'm here, Don's here, we're here out here out of Seattle, Washington, but my guest is from Washington, D.C. And so I would just want to say good evening to everyone. As you know, I'm Love Always, and I'm a love addict. I hope you have had a chance to put in action some of the tidbits and notes given to you by our guest last week, Letitia of Embrace Your Ugly, because we have another good show for you with more healing support. We are giving the example of what homework we did that can help you. If you are where I have been with chronic heartbreak and trying to get over someone or something, people tell you that, just pray or time heals all wounds. And, but you wonder, why is it not working for you? Or maybe you're just broken or something's wrong with you. Because, like every time I would break up with somebody, I'm always up on Google. Google, look, if I had Siri or somebody, it's like, Siri, can you tell me how to heal real quick? Or can you give me a real quick fix or something? So, and then I would also buy people seminars, and it's like I go to seminars after seminar, and it seemed like everybody sounds exactly the same. So it's like, did they really go through this? Or are they just trying to feed me a whole pot of crap, So I don't like to capitalize off of people hurt, and that's why my guests are here. They're not here to capitalize off your hurt. They're here to actually help you get over whatever it is you're going through. And so whatever, if you need to text some questions, ask us anything and whatnot, sure, give us some tea, because you can shut your mouth, but keep on talking. Let me sip on my tea too.
Oh, let me sip on my tea.
So today, my first date, my first date. my
Girl, we can go out.
As a matter of fact, I have today co-hosting with me from the Clay 1180 radio military report. The Don is on with us here on live as a guest. And again, now back to our guest, which is Tracey from
Hello, everyone.
Cheap, Classy, and Sassy. So what is it? What is your brand, Tracey?
Well, the brand actually is about really empowering women. I tell people I partner with women who have lost their way. They've lost their identity. They're tired of hiding behind their mask, and they're really exhausted at saying, I am sorry for whatever it is, for the way I look, for the way I talk, for the way I sound. And now they're ready to fearlessly pursue their dreams. They're ready to reclaim and embrace their authenticity. Yes, they're like, I'm loving my natural hair. I love my full lips. I love my small frame. I love my curves. And they're also unapologetically going and walking in their purpose. And that is the brand in and of itself. It's about loving self and empowering women of all shapes, sizes, races, cultures, religions to truly be the woman that they can and want to be.
And that's a shut your mouth, but keep on talking moment.
Right.
Okay.
This is tea.
That's some hot tea we got here going for you guys, and it's not that tea like that gossip tea, that regular tea or whatever. That good old Earl's Grey herbal tea that's good and healthy for you. So can you tell us give us something, like people like to be able to relate and know that we're real people who've gone through what they've gone through. Because you know how somebody say, you don't know what I'm going through. You haven't been where I've been. So can you tell us?
Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. And all those things could be evident, of course. But my children are 35 and 31. I was a married single mother for the first 14 years of my children's life. And when I say I was a married single mother, my husband wasn't there. He was not a great husband, and nor was he a great father. And in the midst of that time, I was also physically and emotionally abused. So I have been beaten and broken down, not only mentally and emotionally, but also physically. Been there. And this was my first love. He was my everything. My first kiss, my first sexual encounter, my first heartbreak, my first everything. So you can imagine how broken I was after all of the time that I had been. I met him when I was 10. I married him at 18. We had our first child at 16. So I'm also a teen mom, if you will. I wasn't married, of course.
Okay.
And my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. Wow. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. So it's a beautiful religion. I think all religions are great. But when you are, we can take religion and we can beat people up with it. And because of that, there were things that I couldn't enjoy being a mother, because my parents were so, they weren't zealots, but they had their belief and they put that belief before me. So I was broken with my parents. I didn't grow up with my father, so I was a fatherless daughter in so many ways. My mother wasn't the most loving person, but she always cared for us. So I always felt alone. I was the oldest child. It was just so many things, and I was different. I was small. Everyone else around me was heavier, so I was picked at for being too small. You're skinny. I remember being called skinny as a rail. I was very quiet but very smart, so I was sometimes bullied. I remember my mom had to make me fight someone because she was tired of me coming home after being beaten up. Okay. So my story, it's so many little things. And I'm thinking about things now, and it's like, wow, you really went through a lot. And I didn't make friends easily. I was very, very quiet because my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. I couldn't participate in a lot of things. I didn't really get to participate in basketball games, football games, go to the parties. So I was pretty much alone a lot. So I had to rely on my parents to give me what I needed, but they didn't even know how to give it to me. And I didn't know that until I went through this season, this journey of healing, because the time between me being 12, I remember being 12 and not getting that love, not being able to go to the sporting events, to 40 something, which was in 2011. That's 3 decades when I really started the healing and I was still hurt and broken.
Wow. So when where we tried to do this, what is it? Like I said, I was Googling, how do I get over this? How long is it going to take over? What's the quick fix for this? What is your answer to that?
There is no quick fix. And that's the reason why I hate when people say that about time heals all wounds, because if time truly healed all wounds, none of us would be broken.
Right.
We would be able to walk away from relationships and just shut it off. And let's say the magic number is 2 years, we would be able to do so. We wouldn't have people still needing therapy from childhood traumas. We wouldn't have people who are sociopaths because of what happened to them. If time truly healed all wounds, a lot of society's issues would actually not be an issue. So when you see those quick fix methods of healing your heartbreak, healing your hurt, ending your pain, the frustration, please run, because you have to put some work in. Now, what I will say that happens with time is that over time, the pain is minimized to some degree, but that depends, because to some people, since we don't know their level of pain, that pain could be as painful for them today, and it could be 30, 40, 50 years as it was the day of the actual injury. Right. Because we don't know how people hold on to things. And what we also don't know is how much has been layered on top of that pain that magnified what happened years ago. So pain will help you, the time will help you numb. In some cases, it will also cause you to play the blame game. It will also cause you to become a victim. And we know what happens when we play the blame game and we become a victim. One, we push people away from us, but we are not being honest and transparent with ourselves. So we continue to be broken and hurt and frustrated. And then we start putting on those masks.
Right.
We put on a mask to go to work. We put on a mask to be with our friends. We put on a mask to be with our partners, our mates, or whomever. So we forget who we really are because we are still running from that pain that time didn't heal the wound from.
Right.
So how did some of that pain manifest in your life during that early times? Because I know most folks would want to know, want to identify with what you went through, want to know, okay, so I was in this in a relationship that wasn't probably as healthy as it should be. And this is how it manifested. I was angry all the time. So something like that. How was some of the things that you were going through begin to manifest in your own life and probably in the lives of your children since they were born that young? So all of you were going through something. So can you share a little bit of that?
Absolutely. For me, the manifestation was I actually went into myself. I was very distrustful of people. So I did not, part of me not being able to make friends was because I didn't trust someone with my truth. I couldn't be honest with my pain. I couldn't be honest with people. But what also manifested was that every man that came into my life, and I've been married twice and I didn't date a lot. My first boyfriend, my children's father, my everything, I put so much on him that I didn't get from my parents, from my father. I was looking for the love in him. And because he didn't know how, he was 11, 12 years old. He didn't know how to love me. He didn't know how to love. I think I put so much pressure on him to be what I needed that I pushed him away in some ways. He also ended up on drugs and some other things that had nothing to do with me. But I think one, I didn't know how to truly love someone because I was looking to love me. I didn't do things. I've always been a good girl, if you will. I never took any risks because I couldn't risk anyone not being able to love me because I was a bad girl, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't make sense when you think about, well, you were promiscuous at 16. You got pregnant. I got pregnant the first time. I had never had sex. And the day that happened was the day my mother moved to DC with my father. And I was like, well, if she can't love me, if she's leaving me, I might as well go ahead and have sex. I mean, why not? At least he's showing love to me.
Right.
So I acted out because I was hoping to get love. So I was looking for love in all the wrong places. So I ended up with my daughter, and she was actually my lifesaver, but I still couldn't get past the gnawing inside of not being loved. And it kind of makes me think of your story, Love Always. I wasn't lovable. My dad wasn't there, and I'm about to cry. I apologize.
Oh, don't apologize.
Because, my dad wasn't there. He never showed up, and I couldn't understand that. I never had that conversation, and my mom never really talked to me about it. So I didn't feel lovable. So I would go the extra mile. I literally would. If you said you needed something, it didn't matter if you were my husband, my mom, my children. I was there. I was constantly buying someone something, doing something for them, because I was trying to get that love.
Right.
So that's how it showed up. Although I didn't do anything bad, I gave too much of myself. So I got hurt quite easily.
Right. And I'm just gonna take like a quick pause so that way everybody can let that sink in. And while you're letting that sink in, as a matter of fact, Miss I get well, in the audience, Miss Kathy, she's an artist. As a matter of fact, I like to keep her picture because I think she looked like me.
Oh, beautiful.
Her work. And we have a lot of people who tune in, and even if I know they're even if they're not tuned in now, they'll be tuning in later. And I want to say holla, and you sending shout outs to you and whatnot. And I just want to go back to that big T, where she said, when you like, I know that we've all been there as far as we get this mindset where it's like you said, well, you're not showing me love, or you're not doing this, almost kind of like when people say, what is that? Like, oh, I'm always getting spankings anyhow, so I might as well go ahead and do it, kind of thing, So,
Right.
So it's like that is that's some big T, like I said, and what would you say to if someone's young or they have a child and they're a parent and they're looking at their child, they know, because sometimes you can, with 2020, look at your children and say, I already know what they're thinking. I already know what road they're about to go down and things. Mm-hmm. What would you, if you could speak to their child through them, for them, what would you say?
If I could speak to their child for them, I would simply tell them to find a way to try to understand the parent or the person that they are having this difficulty with, that is not able to show them whatever it is or give them whatever it is that they need to get. But secondly, and actually probably more importantly, and I won't say secondly, because it's really hard to tell a child to love yourself.
Right.
We don't learn how to truly love ourselves. And I would actually honestly say we don't learn to do that until we probably get into our 20s and 30s, when we've been through some things. We think we know how to love ourselves when we are in our teens and our early 20s, but we haven't been through enough to truly learn what love really is. And right. Love is not even, self-love is what you do. It's when you are able to set up those boundaries. You can't figure out what those boundaries are until you go through something to know what you don't want anymore. So it's a learning process, but I will ask them to really, if there's no one that they can talk to at home, find someone, a guidance counselor. And I will say one of my guidance counselors was the reason why I never did anything wrong. I never really wanted to, but one of my guidance counselors believed in me so much. And he knew my father. They actually were in Vietnam together. And when he found out whose child I was, he was able to explain certain things to me about what happened in Vietnam and how my father was affected. So I had someone to talk to, but it was still difficult, and everyone is different. So it's hard to really say what you would say because every situation is, but the first thing is find someone that you can confide in, to you at least release some of the hurt and the burden that you can talk to. The other thing is try to look at that person through a different lens. If someone had told me that in the past, I could have looked at my mom and my dad differently, because now hindsight being 2020, I didn't know that my mother had never been shown the kind of love that I was trying to get from her. And like you, I was looking for the love that's on TV. Right, that's only kind of love that I thought was out there. I wanted to be able to play in the bed and her and I dress up alike and we go do mother-daughter thing. My mother wasn't like that. But hindsight being 2020, her mother wasn't either, because I think about my grandmother and I'm like, I don't remember her ever hugging me. I remember her whooping me, but I don't remember it. But that's not, you don't get that as a child. You get that as you grow. So the most important thing is find someone. And I know in this day and age, it is really, really hard. But with social media, it's actually not as hard as you really think it is to find someone who has been down that hole or is going down that hole, that is going through what you've gone through or is going through it. And you all may be able to be that confident for one another, or someone that can steer you in the right direction. But definitely don't be afraid to reach out and open your mouth for help. I didn't know how to do it without making my mother feel bad. And that's another thing. You're too young to know how to handle some of those things. So I think my actual conversation may not even necessarily need to be with the child, but more so with the parent. How do you interact with your child if you see them going down that hole? What do you need to do? Because sometimes our own transparency of being able to say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do this because this was never done for me, will actually help you to heal and actually help them to see you in a different light and give you the courage to actually try to do something that's not common for you, that's foreign to you, and actually build a better relationship so that you guys can grow. And again, that's why every situation is very different, because everyone is different and we receive things differently. But I think that would be the first thing. Transparency is very, very much required as a parent. And I think we hide too many things sometimes from our children because we think that we have to have the muscles, we have to have the cape on, being Wonder Woman or Superman. And we need to let them see our vulnerability. We need to let them see our transparency. We need to let them know what's going on and be honest with them, because when we let them out into the world, we set them up for some of the heartbreak. And again, time doesn't heal those wounds. And then at some point you're going to have that conversation, and it may not be easy because now the emotions are involved and some people hold on to things longer and it's harder to let it go.
Okay.
How important is it to identify what love means to you at an early age?
Would you clarify that question for me?
One of the things that I've gathered along the way is that there's a lot of us, actually, as we're children, no one actually tells us what love is. So we begin to associate love with more so attention and affection, which are just components of love, but not necessarily what love is, because love is actually indescribable. So at some point you have to get to a place to say, okay, for me, this is what love means to me, or this is what love don't mean to me. So if someone treats me bad, that's not actually love. So that gets scratched off the list. But one of the things I found out along, through my own personal journey is that there's a lot of us, myself included, at an early age that could not define or didn't know what love really was. So we begin to, emulate other people's love. So if you're in a family where both the spouses are always arguing, but then they make up, then you begin in your own mind as a child believe that that's what it's supposed to be. That's what they must love each other. Mm-hmm. They're always arguing and fighting, right? Right. But you don't get to that point to understand, and I think you mentioned a little bit of it along your journey, where you begin to decide, well, that's not love. That's not how I want to be loved. Begin your own personal story. So I wanted to ask that because at some point, I got a two-part question. When did you decide what love was to you? Whether it's personal love, self-love, or just love that you begin to demonstrate to your children. And the second question would be, similar to what Love Always asked you, was, if you look back at yourself doing that part of your journey, what would you tell yourself? Okay.
Fair enough. I'll answer the last question first. Honestly, I would not change anything about my journey. I believe that the journey that I went through was the journey that God needed me to go through to become the woman that I am, and to be able to have this particular purpose so that I could help other women be who they are supposed to be in God's image, and to understand how to use their past as a catalyst for them to be the best that they can possibly be, and make it make it possible for the young women and the women in their lives to improve upon their lives to be the best versions of themselves. So if I went back and changed something, my message would be different. So I wouldn't change anything, none of the hurt, none of the abuse, none of it. I would not change one thing. And I know some people go, no, I really wouldn't, because I love the person that I become because of my trials and tribulations. And now I have a testimony in my walk of faith also. So hopefully that answered that question. But honest to goodness, this is the funniest thing. I was married twice, and I put the same pressure on him as I did my first husband. I didn't realize I was putting that pressure on him until I went through this journey, which started in my journey actually started June of 2009. I took an anger-filled, I'm going to show you, I don't need you. I'm going to make you love me trip to Florida. I went for 7 days. I did not tell my husband I was married. I didn't tell him I was leaving. I packed a bag. I booked my everything, and I drove to Florida, and he had no idea where I was. Oh, wow. And I was going to make him love me, because I was like, you don't see me here, so I might as well leave to make you love me. Now, here's the thing. What I needed, I knew what I needed even at 10 from the man in my life. Even at 10, I always knew that I wanted him to love God. Have no idea how I knew this, but obviously as a child, there was something inside me that showed me what I needed. I was a thinker. I was a reader. I didn't watch TV a lot. So I was always gobbling up information. I was looking for information. But I always knew what I was looking for in a person. I knew that they had to give me affection. I knew that I needed words of affirmation. I didn't know that what it was at the time, though, but I know I wanted to be hugged. I knew that I needed to be kissed. I knew that I needed to be told that I was pretty. I knew that as young as that. Now, when I started this journey in 2009, that's when it was revealed to me that this is the beginning of the end of your marriage. And this is your time for you to find yourself. I didn't really know it at that time. 2011, when I moved to Virginia, I realized that's what that message was about, because nothing got better.
Right.
We continued to play the game. So I think as children, we have some idea of what we need. Somewhere innate in us, we know there's certain things that we like because of what makes us happy. Some children love getting gifts, and that makes them feel loved. For me, I didn't care about getting gifts. I just wanted you to hug me, to talk to me, to tell me that I was pretty, that I was smart, that I meant something to you. I just wanted you to play with me. Some kids need something different. At that time, I did not know that was a love language. Now, when I went on that journey in 2011, there were there were 3 books, well, probably 3, but the one book that helped me the most was Keeping the Love You Find. And I can't remember the name of the author, but that book is like you doing your own personal therapy on yourself. And it is very intense. It is not a book that you get through in one week, 1 month, 1 year. It took me 5 years to get through it, because it made me go all the way back to being a child. I had to have tough conversations with people to help me figure out why affection was so important to me. Why was words of affirmation so important to me? Why I needed the male in my life so much. And I found, and this is why time does not heal all wounds, because if it had, I wouldn't need those questions answered at almost 50 years old. I'm 51 now. And I just got these questions answered in the last 6 years.
Okay.
I had to have that. My mom had to tell me why. At 2, probably by the time I was 2 years old, every man in my life had walked out. And in some capacity. Not my grandfather was the first man who loved me. Okay. He died before I was 1. So that's my first interaction with a male's love. He was the one that picked me up and everything. My uncle, because my father was in Vietnam, he became the second man. But when my father came home from Vietnam and realized that my uncle was saying I was his child, he told him to stop saying so. And he stopped dealing with me completely. I wasn't even 2. Then my father married someone else and he was out of my life. So that's every connecting point to a male. I wouldn't have never known that had I not had that dialogue, and I would have never understood why I put so much on a man in my life. So you have to go through a process of uncovering information that some people will give it to you, some won't. My mom had never given me that information until my dad passed in 2009, which is why I cried, got choked up because I lost my dad. But we did have a good relationship by the time he passed. So you have to go through the process of understanding where the hurt comes from, where the pain comes from, and then understand how it has activated in your life, and then figure out how to utilize it for your best. So it's a process of work, and you have to also accept your part in that process. Hello. So
now, somebody has a question of, was it hard for you to hug people at first?
No, I've always been affectionate. I've always been this way. And I know it sounds funny, but I was the type of person, and I think a part of me has always been this way because I wanted love so much. I never wanted someone else to not have it. So even now, if I meet strangers, I'm hugging you. I'm like, hey, girl, because I don't like shaking. I will shake your hand, but I'm like, I'm a hugger. Let's hug. Because we never know if that hug is something someone needs to stop them from pulling the trigger, from putting a noose over their neck, from going out and committing a horrible crime. It's also one of the reasons why I say certain things to people. If you notice, I always talk to women and I always say, hello, beautiful. To men, I always say, hello, handsome. We don't hear it enough. And especially, and I'm going to qualify this because I can only qualify this as being a woman of color, we do not hear that enough in our own homes. We don't hear it with our own people a lot of times. And as a group, women, we don't necessarily lift each other up. We're constantly beating each other up in some ways. So this was none of the things that I was able to give to people. And the funny thing is, because of me being the person that I am, and because of what I didn't get as a child, my children never had to go through that. Now, they did go through it with their father because he never was in their lives after I divorced him. But they never had to do that with me. So we have the best relationship, and we talk about everything. And when I say I was vulnerable and transparent with them, I told them everything, but I never, ever, ever bashed their father or my parents or anything that happened. I tried to teach them that through those processes, it's what made me be able to love them and give them what they needed to support them in being the people that they are.
So do you have like a book out or anything, or like what is it that you do? Do you offer services?
I do. I am a mindset, empowerment, and confidence coach for women. Because again, a lot of women are walking wounded is what I like to call them. They are high achieving. They're great mothers. They're great employees, or they're great business owners. But a lot of times they're not actually walking in their purpose because of limiting self-beliefs. And those beliefs come from their past typically. So we have to untrain those. We have to undo those beliefs, give them new ways of thinking, and then we have to teach them how to master that thinking so that they can continue to build on it. So I offer coaching services, and I just finished writing an ebook called, oh goodness, I just went blank. It is the how to tap into your power, which is your femininity. A lot of women, and I will have to say, particularly women of color, we are not taught that our femininity is positive. We are not taught that our body is beautiful. We're not taught that the way our worth, we're not taught to believe that we're worthy. So there are 5 steps that we talk about, which is a lot of it has self-worthiness, and it is an ebook that's going to be available April or May. I'm still finishing up pieces of it, but it will be available. And of course, there's more to come because there's definitely a book somewhere in me. I just haven't figured out what it will be about.
Well, the Don has
Sure. Now, how is this?
Well, I was getting ready to give you guys tea time with Sincerely Love Always real quick. So, do you have a teacup? So, would you like to read our audience letter or?
Absolutely. I did get a chance to peek at it a little bit, and I'll honestly say it almost had me in tears. So if I cry a little bit, it's not because I'm feeling sorry for you, but it's because my heart hurts with you.
Okay.
Dear love, I have this heaviness in my chest as I write. Growing up, I was not put up for adoption, but I was passed from home to home amongst family members. I had been molested, and when I told someone, how horrible because let me start this. When I told someone it was horrible because my accuser called me a liar, and everyone kept asking me, was I sure? And saying things like, that's your uncle. He wouldn't do anything like that. You always sitting in his lap. As an adult, I would tell my fears to my boyfriends in hopes they would make me feel safe and secure. And there's another piece of it, but I can't access it. You may have to read the last part of it.
Okay. The uncle, where did you just leave off at?
I left off at, as an adult, I would tell my fears to my boyfriends in hopes they would make me feel safe and secure.
Therapy is all about medication and talking. When I leave there, I feel empty and lost still. I am talented, so I throw myself into hobbies to only feel I'm not valued, because people take advantage of my skills and do not pay me my worth. Yet if I ask for my worth, then I'm ousted as if I had the audacity to ask. The most hurtful thing is that I have had a broken heart over one guy for over 8 years. He had great potential, but like me, his need to be accepted tore us apart. For the longest, I waited for him to say, let's cut everyone off and make this about us. But we became so distant that all I did is cry. I cut everyone off and slowly started making new friends. I gave myself a year of affirmations and therapy to hopefully get over him. It's 2 years since I've started that. Now I feel like I just exist. I'm tired, but not suicidal. Is there hope for me to find love? Sincerely broken.
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that I am so very proud of your courageousness to share your story. Even though your family members do not believe what happened to you, you know what happened to you. And you have to remember that it is very, very hard for people to think that someone would do something wrong, especially to a child. And they don't think about the fact that a child is afraid. A child is looking for love. And the one thing that you stated in your note is that you'd been passed around as if you were a rag doll, unfortunately. And no one ever thought about you being a child, what you associated that with. And it sort of sounds a little bit about like my own story. As you were being passed from one person to the next person to the next person, your worth and who you were it was eroded. So now you're at a place where you're having to rebuild who you are, and you have no idea how to do it because you've never known your worth. Because when you were not validated in sharing what happened to you, that took every little bit of your worth away from you because now you're a liar. The first thing I'm going to tell you that you have to do, I don't know your faith, but I am also a Christian mindset and empowerment and confidence coach, is that you have got to remember that you are made in God's image. If you are made in God's image, you are not junk, because God does not make any junk, and he does have a plan for you. And if you're made,
keep on talking.
if you are made in his image, he not only made you in his image, but God is love. So if God is love and you're in his image, you are love. You are worth something. And I know you said you wrote the affirmations down. The difference between writing the affirmations down and actually for them actually to be imprinted on your heart and in your mind is that you actually have to start to believe them. You can't just write them down and read them one day and just think. You have to embody those in some capacity. And it may be a little bit difficult to do that because you don't actually have that place yet. But don't overwhelm yourself with those affirmations. You've got to start to love yourself first. You said a lot about your skill set. You have a skill that other people don't have. That makes you unique in and of itself. Yes, are there different artists out there? There are a lot of coaches out there too, but they're not talking about what I'm talking about. So they can't teach it the way that I talk. What's for them is going to be for them, and what's for me is going to be for me, and that's perfectly fine. You are going to have to dig deep inside yourself. And you're going to have to do these things because, again, the time hasn't healed and you've been through therapy. But some of it has to do with some of the things that you're going to have to release on your own. And the first one is acceptance. And there are a couple of different steps that we go through when you're trying to heal. You have to accept your part in some of the heartbreak that has happened in your life, not the molestation, because there was nothing, and I repeat, nothing that you could have ever done as a child for your uncle or any man or woman to touch you in that inappropriate way. So don't you dare own any of that. That was not yours to own, and you do not own it.
Right.
Okay. But the first thing you have to do is you do have to own some of the responsibility and some of the hurt that you have. And I know that's going to be hard to take, but because we make choices, and every time we make a choice to accept someone else's abuse toward us, whether it be verbal, emotional, physical, whatever it is, and you know that you shouldn't, because from what I also heard, you know some of the things that you actually accepted, but you know you shouldn't have. But it was because out of a place of want and need. But in order to get past it, you've got to accept your part of the responsibility in it. And once you're able to accept your part of the responsibility in it, then you can start saying, okay, now I'm able to set up some boundaries of what I will and will not accept. And that means looking back through your past relationships with the men that you've dealt with in your life. What was it that you accepted that you know you shouldn't have? Set some boundaries up. And I would probably say this because I know that at 10, when I was thinking about what I wanted, there was the guy that I date now. He is exactly what I prayed for at 10. That prayer never changed for the type of man that I wanted in my life. So you have to be willing to also step in and show up for yourself. When you are setting those boundaries based on everything that you've gone through, you've got to say no. You may be alone in the process, but I promise you, every time you say no to what you do not want, your muscle will get stronger on what you do want. And when you start you'll start getting those signals when someone is not giving it, and it'll be so much easier for you to say no. And learn how to say no without guilt, because you owe no one an apology for taking what you want for yourself, for protecting yourself. That's part of self-care. And that's when you know you have self-love. When you know that you have self-love is when you start following the self-care. Self-care is about the boundaries. Self-love is when you have the signals that go off that says someone's infringing on my boundary. Self-care is what you do to prevent them from going any further. The other thing is you're going to have to forgive. this may be the hardest thing that you have to do. When I say forgiveness isn't about the family members. It's not about the uncle who molested you. It's not about the boyfriends that weren't there for you. It's not about the boyfriend who wasn't able to give himself to you, because obviously you stated he also was not whole yet. So he can't give you, two broken people can't make anything but something broken. You don't want anything broken. You deserve whole. So you're going to have to forgive everybody. But more importantly, you've got to forgive you, baby girl. You've got to forgive you for every bad thought that you had about yourself, every hard thing that you said, harsh thing, everything. You've got to learn how to forgive you. You've got to put it out there and say, I apologize. And if it takes you having to put Post-it notes all over your car, all over your home, whatever it is, so that you can actually continue to love on yourself, because it is every time you do it, the muscle gets stronger. It's just like exercise. It has to get stronger. You've already asked for help. So maybe you weren't with the right therapist or the right coach. Not everybody that says that they can deliver on something can deliver on it. So don't give up on that, and be ready to ask for some help. And if you're looking for help, make sure you look for those testimonials. Make sure you, if you can, social media, we can reach people now. Contact some of the people where they said they had a testimonial, and ask them, tell me a little bit about your process with this person. But I think the first step is you've actually already taken it. You wrote the letter, and that's so courageous, so very courageous. I wish I could hug you now, but I hug you.
And I also want to throw in there too that
wow, that was very, very impressive. I know that person that wrote that letter is touched, even as I'm touched by the words, the kind words that you shared, and not only kind words, but the solution, being able to speak and provide solutions as well along the way. So thank you for that. How important is it to catalog, or to to catalog your journey and reflect? How important is that to you?
It is very important, because literally, as you guys can see, I am a very emotional person. Emotional in that I don't have a problem showing those things, but I realize how blessed I have been to go through the journey. And that's one of the reasons why I won't change it. But it's very important because I can see how my choices and the boundaries that I set, the standards that I set for myself, the ability to contact the people who hurt me and tell them, and you don't have to do this, but I did. I contacted my husband, the relationship, and I apologized to him, and I explained to him why I was where I was. And he was just like, I'm so proud of you. I didn't need his validation, but I did need to let him know, because I didn't even know that I was hurting him. So that was very important. And that showed me the level of maturity that I had grown to, because I'm stubborn. I'm the kind of person, you hurt me, I'm done with you, done.
Right.
I wouldn't spit on you if it was a fire. That's what I used to say. If it was a fire, that's what I used to say. But my walk, the journey also increased and grew my relationship with God. It grew my relationship in my faith. It grew my ability to be more forgiving and understanding. It grew me in areas that I didn't even know that I needed to grow in some cases. I thought I was really good in certain areas, but it's really important, because when you see how far where you were to where you are today, in which is unfortunately the woman who wrote the letter, she wasn't able to see that because she still sees herself in the same place. It's important because then you know you can do it.
Right. Right.
And every time, and what we don't do, and I will encourage her if she decides to take any of the solutions that I gave her, Reward yourselves for the small wins. Because just like pennies make dollars, every small step moves you closer to that big goal on the other side. So you have to reward yourself. And I think we miss that. Even though you're going through that journey of self-discovery and it's painful, I also would encourage you to continue to dig into not only what's going on around you, but be very in tune with the people that you allow in also. And as you're setting those boundaries, you'll be able to see why certain people were able to do what they were able to do to you. And then you'll be able to set up boundaries and know the people who you don't want in your life. And I have a worksheet that I work with a lot of my clients, especially when we're doing their vision board, because you can't get to where you want to go until you know where you've been and what actually works for you. A lot of us make goals based on what we think we need to do or what we want to do because of what society says or what someone else is putting in your ear. And it has nothing to do with what's in your heart, what really is what you want to do, which is one reason why a lot of us are lost and we end up heartbroken and hurting. But I actually have them write out what they want in their life, what they don't want in their life. And then I actually have them write out and think about what their personal values are. Because when we sit down and rethink about what our personal values are, then we'll realize, and I'll give you a perfect example. I am not an exerciser. I don't like it. I don't like to be sweaty. I don't. So for me to put my goal is to exercise 6 days a week, 4 days a week for an hour, that's not a value. I value health, but what I don't value is the exercise that goes with it when it requires me to do it for 4 hours, 4 days a week. I'm not that committed to it.
And are these on your own website, your values, or they just contact you and you give them like these values? We're gonna have to wrap up. Our time is about up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I can get it. As you can see, I'm passionate about it.
Okay. Well, I have her. I have your group up on the screen right now, and like you can also check her out in her group. And she's also just like to give a little quick thing to our to the letter also that there is hope, just like Tracey said, and I've been there. And for me, like I was so suicidal growing up and different things that I thought that I was never going to heal for that. And the thing that, like for me, it became something that was, I had children, and I'm not saying go out and have kids to do this, but my thing was I didn't want my kids to go through what I went through or end up, like if I kill myself, then who's going to take care of my kids? So I was like, I don't want my kids to be adopted by this group of people. So I have to stay here and fight. And then one day, all of a sudden, I noticed that I wasn't suicidal like I was before. I was still sad and I was still had that heaviness like you had in things, but it was still, still there, but it still took time. But I wasn't so focused on the pain as much as I was before because I was, I had a reason to live and a reason to fight and whatnot. But Tracey has given us some great tools and things to go off of for you to work on this week. Check her out in her group. Her group. What is it? Is it Sashi? I can't say it.
Actually, the group is called the Spice Rack, the accountability group for women who are ready to be fearless, authentic, unapologetic. And inside the Spice Rack, we have motivational messages, we have affirmations, we have challenges, and they can also, for those who would like to connect with me, my email address is Coach Tracey, and Tracey is spelled Tracey at chic, and that's CHIC, classy, CLASSY, spicy, SPICY.com.
Okay. And so also check out the lovealways.today site. And don't forget to subscribe to my Connect Pal, which it should be up, but I have to check on it. But if you want to view the live broadcast, it's still going to be up here for, this week for you guys to see. And if you have any guest suggestions or want to send a letter for our tea time session, inbox me at lovealways5 and tune in next week where our topic is mixed signals, the tall tale sign. And we'll see you soon. And thanks for watching.
Thank you all.